All right, and lastly, if you don't want to have to keep up with what is where and what is allowed and what is not allowed, this kind of summarizes it for you. In the fourth energy level, you can have a D, you can have an F, you can have a D, you can have a P, and you can have an S. And then within this, the F, there are 7 orbitals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 possibilities. You can be any of these directions of the F orbital. And then this doesn't have the spin category in it, but within each orbital, you can either be a plus or a minus 1/2. And that would be repeated all the way down. If we were talking about the d electrons, in the fourth energy level, those would be with a 2. And then we would pick, there are 5 degenerate ones. There are 5 different shapes. You can go back and look if you're not sure. And we'd pick one of those numbers, and then we'd pick which spin we were talking about. Those are all allowed. So if we ever tried to pick this and then tried to put like a 2 here, you'll see that there's no space for a 2. You can't have a D shape in, or a directional, a sphere only has one direction, which is, it has no direction. It's like 0. It has 0 direction to it. So this chart can kind of help you keep up with what you can and can't do with quantum numbers. And this is how we use our orbitals. We say 4. So all of these are 4. And then a lot of times we'll just take the L and the S to help us, the L and the N to help us. So it could be 4F, it could be 4D, it could be 4P, or it could be 4S. We are going to be placing electrons in these orbitals in the next section. If you'd like some practice with the definitions we've talked about, or with the quantum numbers and the naming and what the quantum numbers mean, those are 2 Quizlets that you can use. So to review, what we've covered is we've talked about waves, we've talked about wavelength, frequency, and amplitude. We have talked about the electromagnetic radiation spectrum and just, what kind of waves are on different parts of the spectrum. We've used those equations. We've used these equations. We've talked about Bohr and how we was talking about electron excitation. We've talked about Bohr's model. Make sure that you understand the difference between Bohr's orbits and orbitals, which is a quantum mechanical model, but it's hard to draw, so we usually revert back to using Bohr's pictures. Then we talked about Heisenberg. We talked about electrons in orbits. We just talked about the quantum mechanical model of the atom. And we know that there are 4 quantum numbers. If you give 2 quantum numbers, can you tell what shell it's in? And then subshells, 4s, 3p. And lastly, if you were given 2p, what are the other numbers that would follow? So like up here, if it were 2p, it'd be this and this. What other possibilities could it be? And those are the possibilities. So that is the end of a lot of information.